The Wisdom of Boys, What a Few Months Mentoring by a Few Smart Kids Can Teach a Man About Being a Man, by Tom Chiarella. 3 of my mentors won't look me in the eye when they speak. 4 haven't worked a day in their lives. Another sleeps until noon and works only 4 hours a week. They can sometimes seem a little delusional, these mentors. One of them plans to carry a katana back and forth to his first job. That's the current extent of his expectations concerning work. Another hopes to live the rest of his life on money he will find in a box somewhere. The chances, he says, are 50-50. Treasures can be real, he told me. Really real. At least one of my mentors owns a snake. They are demanding. One mentor never eats potatoes. He won't even try them. Most of them despise walking. They eschew it. Bikes. Bikes are big. 2 of them actually prefer climbing to walking. They agree that climbing from tree to tree is a far better way to cross town. One mentor says he can remember what it was like before he could walk, when he was crawling on his living room floor. He liked that state of being better. Crawling is way better than walking. You get low. You're camouflaged. It's actually a pretty fun way to get around, he says. My mentors are mostly broke. They don't pay for anything. They could order 6,000 milkshakes on 6,000 summer evenings, and they'd never pay for one. Ever. Grabbing the check simply does not seem to occur to them. In fact, 5 of my mentors don't carry cash. They often wear pants that have no pockets. The one thing they truly have in common, to a mentor, to a man, to a boy, each of them lives with their mom. It always helps to get a little guidance, to observe grace in action, to receive the occasional nudge toward what is right. I've always tried appointing mentors, my elders, men and women who came before me, success stories, innovators, from work, life, family. I never told them. I just watched from a distance, occasionally asking them mercilessly and openly to assess things for me. What do you think? What should I do? What's your take? There always seemed to be someone, a teacher, a more experienced colleague, someone who'd been down the same roads as me, a person who had become what I wanted to be, something to aspire to. Lately, not so much. Sooner or later, the world expects that the die is cast, that you have arrived, that there's only so much influence to go around, that you are finally you, for God's sake. People start to ask you to mentor. They put you in programs at work to watch over a younger colleague or some at-risk kid. Just like that, you are a mentor, everybody's big brother, whether you're good at it or not. And me, not good. And I've tried. Mentor, life coach, advisor. I've been bad at it in every phase of life, education, and career. Too inattentive, forgetful, self-obsessed. And when I finally gave up trying to be a mentor, I was pretty certain there wasn't one single piece of advice that hadn't been given, that wasn't posted on the internet or given life at the meetings of addicts, startup businesses, or therapy groups. One group parrots the other, giving time-tested answers. Last night, I stood in line at the county fair and heard someone giving advice, older guy to a younger guy. I knew them. The older guy was the mentor of the younger one. This was the advice. You know what I always say. Listen to your heart. Don't back down. Finish what you started. There it is. This is my complaint. I hate it when shop-worn aphorisms, empty code words, or dopey hooks from dopey pop songs substitute for good advice. When the chance to help, to mentor, is treated as a chance to remind the world that you alone among them were right all along. Still, I've always believed in the power of influence, the importance of advice, and I wanted to believe in it again. I wanted a new kind of mentor, someone who might see the job of offering guidance as a chance to really teach something, someone who had never done it before, someone deeply concerned about being an adult, someone who had listened to advice and guidance for a lifetime and who might be ready to dish out a little of his own. So I asked a boy. My first mentor, Oliver, age 12. The first time we met at Starbucks, Oliver's dad dropped him off and nudged him to shake my hand, and then left to drink coffee and dink around on his laptop. So it was just Oliver and me then. The world looked so big when wrapped around the sight of my mentor. We made small talk, movies, food, Sherlock Holmes, Little Sisters, global warming, like that. Eventually I asked him about the job, mentor, life coach. Did he understand what was required? He nodded, shrugged, looked far to his left, and started in. Oh yes, he said. A mentor is a little hard to define. You're asking for advice on life, and I'm supposed to tell you what I know. And I'm not an expert. And people will want to know why you would want to be like a 12-year-old. That's another thing. It's for a magazine. I do know, my father explained last night, that you don't know if this will work. And there'll be pictures. Otherwise, it's really, I don't know, maybe that's not it. But that was it exactly. He slouched, his gaze was heavy-lidded, and he tended to look everywhere except at me when he talked. I made a note to speak to him about eye contact when this whole thing was over. It seemed like a tip I'd be able to give him someday. Then I reminded myself that I'd made him the boss, so he sometimes had trouble with eye contact. I wouldn't say he seemed unconcerned or disconnected. He appeared to hear music in a distant room somewhere. He was thinking. I don't think I'm anything like an adult, he said. He drank his milk. You're closer than you think, I said. It's a fact of time. That sounds like a novel, he said. A fact of time. He looked out at things again over his glasses, turned toward me and then away. Fidgety, Mentor. Something was occurring to him, creating a moment of delight. It made him look as if he were counting his money. And like, it's a book about time travel, which means, and this is just me maybe, because I'm the only person in my school who cares about the medieval period, so I would definitely go back to the medieval period in the book. But I'm not a character in the book, so maybe. But we studied it in class last year, and I was really happy because I was like, finally! But then we only spent 3 days on the entire medieval period. And we just went over things I already knew. Really disappointing. What can I tell you? Smart kid, confident, capable, oddly wordy. Sometimes he got tangled, but he was always deep. And before his dad came to get him, I suggested he give me several things he wanted me to do, before we met again the following week. He spoke them, and I wrote them down. Climb for 10 minutes every day at the playground. Climb? Yeah, gives you a way to think about getting there. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Isn't that just something people say? I finally understood it when my dad took me caving on my birthday. I bugged him for years to take me to a cave. This year we went, and very soon after we got in there, I was sitting in icy cold water in the dark waiting for my dad to catch up. I thought, I'm in trouble. I wanted to go home, and I couldn't say that to him. That's when I knew what it meant, to bite off more than you can chew. What'd you do? My mom always says, sometimes you just have to make a decision to be happy. She says you have to replace misery. I would say I was miserable in that cave, so I decided to change it and be happy. You could do that. This week, I mean. Make a decision to be happy. Pick one night and sleep outside. Ugh, I hate campgrounds with all those people. It can be anywhere. Your backyard's okay. Take walks. I got that covered. I walk everywhere. It bores me. Okay, well, take walks in interesting forests then. Okay, take walks in interesting forests. After we finished, I shook his hand, said goodbye to his dad, and drove to the city park. I climbed out of my car, pulled myself up onto a playground castle called the Emerald Palace, 14 feet up. It was a puzzle, this climbing. A lot to think about. Where to place your feet, how to keep your balance while perched 8 feet above a 42-pound girl drawing a banana store in the dirt, finding a grip when everything grippable was designed for hands no wider than a cocktail napkin. It took the entire 10 minutes that Oliver had allotted me. At the top, I pretended that I was sure about my reasons for my conspicuous climbing. The other kids took 2 looks and forgot about me. Prior to that meeting, I had hedged against the possibility that the first mentor might be a little bust by engaging the mentoring services of another 12-year-old, Sal, a lithe, athletic kid with a neat little homemade haircut and a delicately keening voice. Sal knew me as the guy who gave out huge candy bars at Halloween, and when I asked him to be my mentor, Sal suggested I also ask his brother. He was being fair, judicious, watching out for his brother. Vin's 10. We have different opinions on everything. We sat in his living room, a Yahtzee board open on the table, his little sister wandering room to room. I knew Sal wanted to do it. I think Vince couldn't have cared less. I like him, though, so I made him my 3rd life coach. Sal and I played Yahtzee that first day, and I rung his bell. Afterward, Vince sat across from him in the living room, legs sprawled across an armchair, just like his brother. So, do you want to know things about me? Sal asked, absently lining the dice in the game's plastic tray so that only even numbers showed. Sure. What can you tell me? Well, I have a temper, he said, as if he were talking about a pet dog. Sometimes. I have a lot of friends, and sometimes things get mixed up. Do you fight? No. Vince interrupted. Yes, you do, he said. Vin, Sal said. You fight with me? I do not, Sal continued. He turned to me to explain. I don't fight with punches. It's mostly grudges. I do keep grudges. Yes, Sal. Vin, don't interrupt. and they were into it then, cutting each other off, half laughing, half whining. It was obviously an issue between them. Sal always had a plan for what we would talk about. Vince always had a way to react to Sal. It was what my dad used to call business between the monkeys. I held up my hands. Vince took his leave, and Sal continued. Let it go, he said. I'm not mad, I said. I have brothers. No, that's what I'm working on with my mom. Let go of the anger. Let go of the grudges. Like that. I don't really mind. I have to change. Is there a grudge with your brother? He's just a pain. I never get to say anything without him interrupting. So do you ever fight? With his brother out of earshot, Sal raised a shoulder, drew out his words. Yes, of course. We're brothers. But he's very rough on our little sister, which, he's a brother, so... He drifted off at this and smiled. So? So you can't always explain brothers. Not like you can explain friends. He told me stories. Friends in school, friends on sports teams. He explained friends for days. After that meeting with Sal and Vince and another one with Oliver, things felt expansive. I followed their advice to the letter. Read How to Train Your Dragon. Not bad. Drag something around that's much heavier than you are. Watch the Justice League animated series. Sleep outside. I tried not to question. These tasks became separate elements in what I came to think of as the discipline of boyhood. I began to see that I could do one meeting a day, undertake the tasks given me, and then take on more mentors, younger, older, right out of first grade, right out of college, plucked from the grips of high school. I developed a pretty good swath of boyness, culled from the offspring of colleagues going back 20 years. And yes, we live in an age when it seems a little shocking for a man to spend so much time alone with boys, so I kept their parents in shouting distance and ran them through everything before I did it. To the original 3, I added 8-year-old Cam, a first-degree green belt and loyal Queen fan. Logan, 16, a junior in high school who was spending the summer playing lead guitar in a band and working 4 hours a week in the local music store, tuning every guitar twice weekly. And Mark, 22, former student of mine who had written, very nicely too, about his own perilous childhood in a little Indiana town 10 miles from where I live. Every morning I reviewed whom I was seeing that day, and then I did curls with a 5-pound dumbbell until my arm wouldn't work anymore, because a young boy, one of my mentors who got the thing from his mom and gave it to me, told me to. Yes, 5 pounds. He claimed the weight added up, that it was like lifting 1,000 pounds if you did it like 1,000 reps, which is why he was doing it and why I should too. 1,000 pounds, he said quite clearly, is a lot.